Kamala Harris went on Fox News. Good move on her part. It does signal confidence, for sure.
You're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear.
This is like a sickening weakness of her campaign. It is genuinely embarrassing. Yeah, it's so fucking pathetic, dude. This is the worst way you could act. She comes across as airy, disingenuous, repeating the same old bullshit. Not good, man.
So, it looks like Vaush is truly devastated. All of his hope for Kamala not blowing up has completely dissolved into a puddle of despair. Alright, so he recently reacted to the Fox News interview of Bret, Baier, and Kamala Harris. And let's just say he doesn't quite agree with the liberal media's opinion that she apparently destroyed in this interview. Check this out.
Kamala Harris went on Fox News. Good move on her part. You know, between that and Donald Trump ducking out of a bunch of interviews, it does give some nice, like, last moment momentum. It does signal confidence, for sure.
Would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that...
Love the immediate framing, by the way. The idea, like, released. When the Biden-Harris administration releases undocumented immigrants, what they mean is a person declaring migrancy or refugee status has declared themselves at a port of entry. They have been given a court date for the legitimacy of their migrancy to be determined, you know, a court date to determine whether their asylum status will be granted, and they are allowed to move about the country until that court date. Such a manipulative interrogation tactic, Lamau. Yeah, but as Thana points out, the Democrats have set themselves up for this because Democrats have completely conceded this narrative to Republicans.
Let's just get to the point, okay? The point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions...
I'm not finished. We have an
it's a rough estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get you the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And
you already asked the damn question. You already asked the question. What do you mean?
And let me just finish. I'll get you the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the CHIPS and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of...
You can let in like 50 million immigrants, all of whom contribute to the American dream. One dude will kill someone. It's like, oh, sorry, got to throw them all out. It's crazy. But like, keep in mind logistically what the framing is here. The idea of essentially keeping millions of asylum seekers in concentration camps at the border or in Mexico, which would have cost us tens, probably hundreds of billions over the course of Biden's administration just to maintain, people dying in them, people like sleeping in freezing desert nights under those little like heater blankets, children being separated from parents. I mean, you remember Donald Trump's first administration, it was like a nightmare the whole time. And to maintain that through this administration would have caused infinitely more misery than just allowing the largely peaceful asylum seekers freedom while waiting for their asylum appointment. But like she can't say that because that would be like sane, you know?
Taking the oath was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the elite. Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish.
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate, and they didn't bring up that bill.
I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising, and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
No one treats Trump like this, by the way. You know fully well that Trump already would have walked out of the interview, but everyone treats him with kid gloves.
Ah, yes. Nobody treats Trump like this, guys.
Do you believe that the Russians interfered in the 2016 campaign, election?
Well, they meddled, but I think China meddled too.
But
and
why
I think
do you
other
say
countries,
China meddled
and you want to
too?
know something?
Why do you say China? Why don't you just say the Russians meddled?
Because I think China meddled also.
Does he just have a bad memory, or has he never watched a Trump interview before? They hit Trump with tactics like this constantly. Vaush is just mad because the candidate he was hoping would win is being hit with the same tactics now. Also, you say this bit about these migrant camps were a disaster under Trump, but those camps you were talking about were set up under the Obama administration, bud.
The Obama administration bypassed public bidding and secretly gave the private prison giant Corrections Corporation of America, or CCA, a $1 billion contract to detain asylum seekers. That's according to a just published expose in the Washington Post.
Interesting. I wonder why Vaush wouldn't just say that those camps that were set up under the Obama administration were a disaster. I'm sure it was just a fluke.
That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic.
Fentanyl is not coming in through undocumented immigrants. Obviously, why would anyone hinge their multi-billion-dollar drug trade on the potential of, like, you know, Border Patrol catching a guy with a bunch of fent crammed up a condom in his asshole? It's mostly, you know, just shiploads brought through, local police collaborating, corruption. Ridiculous.
So it's ridiculous, you say, Vaush? Well, unfortunately, you are absolutely wrong. 84% of the fentanyl seized in 2022 was seized at the Mexican-American border, and 60% of all fentanyl is seized at the border in California. So you're actually just completely wrong.
During that time, you said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
The nanosecond that Biden got inaugurated and the messaging changed completely.
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed. We need more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents, and they will tell you, and I'm sure you probably, I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that's going to get fixed, Bret. Well, that's how this system works.
That's the premise of this question. There were 90-plus executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talked to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get
because they're evil. I'm just fronting that one out there, just like from a professional angle, probably.
Get it? They want support. They want support, and that's what that border security bill would have done.
Also, like, again, the current framing where Democrats have to be, because they're institutionalists. Like, Donald Trump can attack anyone, and he's fine. He's attacked the military. He's attacked, like, Capitol Police. No one gives a shit. Kamala Harris has to get down on her hands and knees and lick the boots of cops, of the Border Patrol. Like, it's genuinely insane. Border Patrol, those are insane. The Border Patrol agents, they're worse than the average cop, and the cops are already pretty fucking bad.
There's a lot of people that look back at what you said in 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow.
That was 5 years ago, and I have been folded into the mainstream Democratic apparatus. I can no longer have ambitions beyond maintaining the status quo. Next question.
The law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
Sheesh. Isn't it funny how Vaush had all this enthusiasm around Kamala Harris just a couple months ago? I mean, you could look at some of my old videos. Now the dude is just absolutely demoralized about the Kamala situation. I mean, he was just saying that Republicans have nothing on Kamala. Like she was some sort of positive influence or something. Now, look at him.
Hillary Clinton set women back in politics 8 years. It has taken 8 years for a major party to have a female nominee. And
well, really concerned about women's rights over here on Fox News Gutfeld, I assume. They keep talking about Hillary Clinton, by the way, because they have nothing on Kamala. Like, if they were shit-talking Biden here, they would not feel the need to spend more of the segment talking about Obama than Biden. They would just talk about Biden. But they have nothing on Kamala, so they have to keep drawing a relationship between her and Hillary Clinton, even though they act nothing alike.
This is a time when voters, especially here in Pennsylvania, are inundated with commercials and ads. They just want it to stop because it's every commercial. But many of them add noise, but a few of them seem to break through. This particular one from the Trump campaign has gotten a lot of attention.
Kamala supports taxpayer-funded sex changes for prisoners.
Surgery.
For prisoners.
For prisoners. Every transgender inmate in the prison system would have access.
So are you still in support of using
unironically based and like objectively true? Trans-affirming healthcare is necessary healthcare. It's not just cosmetic. And if you have imprisoned someone, you have shouldered the responsibility of their medical needs. Just simple as, like, a very clear, it just like a straightforward, it's not even like an ideologically motivated claim. It's just a straightforward interpretation of existing psychological, medical and legal, practice. It's pretty simple.
Taxpayer dollars to help prison inmates or detained illegal aliens to transition to another gender.
I will follow the law, and it's a law that Donald Trump actually followed. You're probably familiar with, now it's a public report, that under Donald Trump's administration, these surgeries were available on a medical necessity basis to people in the federal prison system. And I think, frankly, that ad from the Trump campaign is a little bit of like throwing stones when you're living in a glass house.
The Trump aides say that
This is a fine answer. I don't expect her to go on like waving the trans flag or whatever. So far, this is an acceptable answer.
Never advocated for that prison policy, and no gender transition surgeries
you know what, you got to take
during
responsible for what happened
presidency.
in your administration.
Yeah, no surgeries happened in this presidency.
It's in black and white.
Would you still advocate for using taxpayer dollars for gender reassessment surgeries?
I will follow the law, just as I think Donald Trump would say he did.
You would have a say as president.
Like I said, I think he spent $20 million on those ads, trying to create a sense of fear in the voters because he actually has no plan in this election that is about focusing on the needs of the American people. Whereas, at $20 million on that ad, on an issue that, as it relates to the biggest issues that affect the American people, it's really quite remote. And again,
I wish she was allowed to say stuff like, this is fucking insane. Like, at some point, it'd be cool for her to, just like, it genuinely insane with all the problems Americans are facing, that Trump's team is desperately trying to make issues out of non-existing. Like, how are you affected by this in any way, shape, or form? How is anyone affected by this,
Huh. So you say it doesn't affect anyone. Well, I would say it's a needless waste of the American taxpayers' money. But If you think this is a hill that you should die on in defense of criminals, then go off, Queen.
Indicated my plans for our economy would strengthen our economy. His would make them weaker.
Why do you
would
think more
ignite
people
inflation
say,
and invite a recession by the middle of next year? Those are the facts.
Why do you think more people say they trust him on the economy than they trust you?
I think that when you look at an analysis of our plans for what we would do as President of the United States, it has been clear to those who study and understand how economic policy works that moving forward, because I do believe the American people are ready to turn the page on the divisiveness and the type of rhetoric that has come out of Donald Trump. People are ready to chart a new way forward, and they want a president who has a plan for the future.
This rhetoric would work if it wasn't for the fact that she is obviously herself still mired in the bullshit of the past. I don't think this like we're moving forward bit is necessarily a bad bit. I think it works pretty well. We're not going back, right? Even though they're not saying that as much anymore because it was too cool for the Democrats. But she won't answer questions directly or be insistent because she sticks to the talking points so effectively. This was the thing that made Bernie Sanders different. This was the thing that made Bernie Sanders so much better. It was that he stuck to the talking points, but it wasn't because he was like workshopping them to a smooth shine. He wasn't like disingenuously avoiding other positions with them. He was just like really committed to those. It came across as earnest and authentic and genuine, not like with her where she's just kind of, because she hasn't like directly answered any of the questions he's asked. His questions have been bullshit, but she can't call them bullshit even though they are.
Interesting. So even Vaush knows that she hasn't directly answered any of the questions that have been asked. And the question is, why would she take this interview if she had no intention of answering the questions? But Vaush also ends up making some comments about how this interview deserves to be arrested for how he treated this interview. Well, I wonder if he knows that Kamala showed up to this interview late and left early, along with filibustering every single question that she was asked. Like, I don't even like the interviewer, but the way he handled this is just a consequence of her evasion and him trying to fit in all the questions.
Madam Vice President, you were asked on 2 different shows last week what, if anything, you would do differently than President Biden. Here's what you said.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been
just phenomenal. Biden polling like incredibly low. You know this question is going to be asked. Yeah, I don't think anything's going to be different.
You're not Joe Biden, you're not Donald Trump, but nothing comes to mind that you would do differently?
Let me be very clear. My president...
This is like a sickening weakness of her campaign. It is genuinely embarrassing. Joe Biden is the guy you replaced at the front of the ticket. He is not polling well right now. He was certainly going to lose to Trump. His approval rating is not good, and you're asked multiple times what you would do differently, and you have no answer to it, except like, haha. She actually does answer it differently here. Well, that's great, but too little too late. That just makes you look like you're inconsistent, you know?
Will not be
we're not going back. We're actually staying exactly where we are right now.
Continuation of Joe Biden's presidency. And like every new president that comes in to office, I will bring my life experiences, my professional experiences, and fresh and new ideas. I represent a new generation of leadership. I, for example, am someone who has not spent the majority of my career in Washington, D.C. I invite ideas, whether it be from the Republicans who are supporting me, who were just on stage with me minutes ago.
Okay, first thing different from Joe Biden. I will be more bipartisan. I will court the opinions of Republicans more. Great. So far, so good.
And the business sector. And
the business. Oh, that's great. Thank you. That's exactly where we need to get fresh new ideas from. Republicans and capital. Okay. All right.
I don't know, man. This lowly addicted guy with beard Tourette's makes some half-decent points about her inability to come up with decent answers on questions that she should have workshopped with her campaign like 1,000 times. I mean, think about it. This is like a top 5 question for something that should be obvious that you're going to be asked, especially as a VP running for president. How does she not have the slightest semblance of a decent answer for this? It's actually kind of shocking. But I guess that could all just be a defensive move if you think about it. She's probably afraid that if she says anything of substance about Biden, then Biden is going to start making more comments about her than he already has.
We've heard a lot about those plans in recent days. Your campaign slogan is a new way forward, and it's time to turn the page. You've been vice president for 3.5 years. So what are you turning the page from?
Well, first of all, turning the page from the last decade.
Yeah, it's so fucking pathetic, dude. Had Trump just won in 2020, we'd be in a safer place, I feel. Honestly, you might not be wrong. I mean, it's genuinely pathetic.
Yeah, genuinely pathetic indeed. Sheesh, Vaush is not liking this interview very much. But if you listen to any sort of mainstream liberal media, you would be under the impression that she destroyed in this interview and hit some sort of home run. I'll at least give it to Vaush for being able to admit the shortcomings of Kamala's campaign.
Maybe this works in the median voter. No, I promise you it doesn't. It literally doesn't. Democrats do incredibly poorly, despite all the issues they ostensibly represent, polling better in referendums. They do remarkably badly for the positions they hold.
The strength of leadership is based on who you lift up. The strength of an American president, which is one who understands that the vast majority of us...
This is for the Fox audience, though, yeah? You guys need to understand this. This is the literal worst way to act to a Fox audience. The only Democrat who did well in a Fox News-like environment was Bernie Sanders in that Fox News town hall. And that's because he's him. This is the worst way you could act. She comes across as airy, disingenuous, repeating the same old bullshit. Like, yeah, like, appealing to the right isn't how you win over right-wingers.
Have more in common than what separates us.
Madam Vice President, more than 70% of people
that is about turning the page on rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Bret.
More than 70% of people tell...
People are exhausted of do-nothing liberal centrism that appeals to no one and, you know, motivates people in no way other than, like, being anti-Trump.
They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track... that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
Like, this comes across as really weak and pathetic. You guys have to understand that, right? You got to understand that, right?
Listen. Over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, the former chief of staff to the president, Donald Trump, former defense secretaries, national security advisor, and his vice president, one, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he is dangerous, and that people are exhausted with someone who professes to be a leader who spends full-time...
Also notice how, like, same as it always was, same with Biden and Hillary Clinton, she can't say anything positive about herself, she's just attacking Trump. Everyone's heard this before. You know, you need inspiring leadership, and all she really has to offer here is like, well, we're not Trump. Like, I mean, she literally said that. Damn, Vaush, everyone else seemed to said Kamala slam dunked this Fox interview. Let me guess, you heard that from liberals? It's not good, man.
Not good indeed. I'm not sure how anyone could say that she performed well in this. If by performed well, they mean insanely evasive to actually give any answer of substance. But, dude, you need to go see a doctor and get yourself checked for beard Tourette's or something. It's so distracting.
Know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
He's quoted in the Bob Woodward book that way, yes. Let me ask you this, Madam
That was a fine enough answer, I suppose, given the circumstances.
Vice President, you call Donald Trump.
The significance of that.
You call Donald Trump. He's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Bret.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to
I love journalism.
The Situation Room. And he has the judgment.
Yeah, when did you stop beating your wife? Ask questions. Literally, like, again, it's like genuinely it should be arrested. The interviewer. It's crazy. Sorry, Vaush, this is an absolute win for Harris. You have to win over more than your average leftist. Sorry, leftist. A liberal. You have to accept our understanding of what like a victorious campaign is. Shits out Hillary Clinton. What are you talking about?
Hillary Clinton set women back in politics 8 years. It has taken 8 years for a major party to have a female nominee. And
well, really concerned about women's rights over here on Fox News Gutfeld, I assume. They keep talking about Hillary Clinton, by the way, because they have nothing on Kamala. Like, if they were shit-talking Biden here, they would not feel the need to spend more of the segment talking about Obama than Biden. They would just talk about Biden. But they have nothing on Kamala, so they have to keep drawing a relationship between her and Hillary Clinton, even though they act nothing alike. Well, Annie, it's the same issue as always, right? Where, like, Democrats come across as spineless because they have two sets of standards when Trump does it versus when we do it. Biden should have never been allowed to run at all. He was always the, like, Democrat, corpo-pushed, compromise candidate that people only voted for because they thought that it was like an Ouroboros of justification where he'll win because we're choosing him as the electable candidate, because he'll win because we're choosing him as the electable candidate. And he was ancient back then. And then they had to pretend. Then despite him obviously like needing to only be a one-term candidate, he ran for a second one like a lunatic. And now it's like, oh yeah, well, we're now suddenly opposed to Trump being old.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a big true on that one. Kind of funny how all of the media kicked the whole Biden is unfit bit under the bed, acting like it just wasn't there, till the smell got so putrid that he just had to drop out. Now, all of a sudden, they're concerned about the mental fitness and age of their opponent. It's just so obviously bullshit, and is actually the exact kind of garbage that makes people hate the mainstream media.
What you wanted to say about Donald Trump, there are a lot of things.
There's more to say. I have
there
much more
are
to say,
a lot of things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and that's why
I invite everyone to go to kamalaharris.com, and you will see that I have 80 pages of policies that are quite comprehensive and should be accessible to anyone who would like to read them. And it includes what I intend to do about affordable housing, what I intend to do about small businesses, what I do
and that's why we invited you here
our economy,
to see where you were in 2019 and where you are now.
America's military and ensure we have the most lethal and best fighting force in the world.
Madam Vice President, and they're giving me a hard rap
here.
Well,
I thank you for the time.
I thank you for the time.
It's good to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hey.
That's cool. Democrats already laying the anti-union groundwork. They got to Vox. That's good. That's good. Hate Fox so much. I mean, a lot of this is just on Kamala Harris, you know? And the Dems. Why would anyone say she kicked ass anywhere in that? I don't know, man. Just believe that she did kick ass so she wins rather than Trump, okay? Reality doesn't matter. Don't get it twisted.
Yeah, the Democratic Party is pretty good at acting like reality doesn't matter. It's kind of like their specialty or something. Vaush has some decent points about that, but watching his total meltdown over the past couple months after claiming that Republicans have nothing on Kamala has actually just been brilliant to watch. Alright guys, that's enough of that. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry for not posting anything in like a month and a half, especially after that last video just popped off so well. I just want you guys to know that it wasn't exactly because I didn't want to. Just the opposite, actually. Long story short, I've been going through some medical shit that's been preventing me from working properly. I've been in and out of the emergency room and doctor's appointments trying to figure it out. And while I haven't quite really figured it out yet, I do feel better than I did, but not 100%. But I did feel good enough to try and start working again. So be on the lookout for future content coming up. But also, if you aren't feeling well yourself, go to a damn doctor. Don't be like me, guys, and just put that shit off. Alright, enough of that. Anyway, I hope you guys liked the video, and if you want to see more content, YouTube thinks you're gonna like this video right here. Peace.